We begin with California's Reparations Task Force, a first-of-its-kind panel aimed at making amends for racist policies and actions against African Americans. Good evening, I'm Ryan Yamamoto.
And I'm Elizabeth Cook. Our Len Ramirez spoke with the Bay Area's representative on the task force about why we need to acknowledge the past to build a better future.
The Reverend Dr. Amos C. Brown is the great-grandson of a former slave. He grew up in segregated Jackson, Mississippi, and is the longtime activist and pastor of the historic Third Baptist Church in San Francisco. He's also a member of the California Reparations Task Force, which is looking into ways to compensate African Americans for centuries of slavery, terror, and oppression.
We must admit that slavery was wrong. Number two, you should atone. What is atonement? Making amends, paying back for the wrong that you've done.
Good morning. My name is Camila Moore, and I'm the chairperson of the
In 2020, California became the first state in the nation to set up a reparations task force, and much of what is done here could be a model for the rest of the country.
Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States.
An evil thing was done to African Americans with the enslavement of our ancestors.
Slavery was one of the founding institutions of the United States. It was abolished during the Civil War, but African Americans suffered many more decades of violence, voter suppression, segregation, and housing and job discrimination. Although California was founded as a free state, Reverend Brown says the racism carried over here.
In the areas of health, education, economic deprivation, and downright intentional efforts to do ethnic cleansing of us.
But all of that wasn't long ago and far away. It happened right here in the 1960s.
So once you cross these railroad tracks, you were in Russell City.
Aisha Knoll's grandparents were property owners in a community of color that was literally wiped off the map. Russell City was one of the few places in Alameda County where blacks and Latinos were allowed to live. The unincorporated town had 12 square blocks, 1,400 residents, a school, churches, shops, and a lively blues club scene that attracted performers like Ray Charles.
It was an actual town. It was a community that had life and history and a lot of wonderful things going on in it.
But the county never provided services like water, electricity, and sanitation. By the late 1950s, the town was declared a blight. Residents were forced to move, and arsonists burned properties to the ground. When the town was annexed into Hayward, the city used eminent domain to remove the last of the residents in 1966 to make way for the industrial park that you see here today.
There is a lot of pain, I think, that comes with talking about the history of what happened to families when they were forced out of this area from the homes that they owned.
Aisha's grandparents and father lost a home and an auto repair business and were forced to accept minimal payments of a few $1,000s. Today, those properties would be worth millions. Russell City is commemorated in this downtown mural, and Hayward has officially apologized for the policies that prevented people of color from owning homes and building their wealth.
This is a local example of why reparations are needed, because this is needed to repair the harm that was done during that period of time.
The task force estimates that reparations for housing discrimination alone could top $560 billion. Reverend Brown says the task force must decide how compensations will be made. There could be things like free tuition, community building programs, or simply cash payments.
Many are saying, I'm just waiting for my check, and I'm waiting to be paid.
Reverend Brown says besides admitting the wrong and atoning for it, the third part of the plan for reparations should be action.
And the committee hopes to make its final recommendations to the state legislature by June.